Welcome to the Uncomfortable Conversations podcast, the untold stories of the 3HO Kundalini Yoga community. I'm your host, Guru Nishan, and I was born and raised in this community. Our community matters. The people of our community matter to me. And so I started this podcast with several intentions in mind, which I read at the beginning of every episode. I want to invite listeners to donate to this podcast at gurunishan.com/uncomfortable conversations to support this work and the stories being told. My intentions for beginning this podcast is number one, to break the veil of silence that has long permeated and continues to strangle the 3HO Kundalini Yoga community in the name of neutrality. Number two, to validate and help clarify the complex feelings of those who have joined this lifestyle, were born and raised into it, and or who have practiced or taught Kundalini Yoga. Number three, to encourage active listening to uncomfortable conversations from our community as a revolutionary act of self and collective healing. Number four, to let survivors know that we see them, we believe them, we love them, and we will fight for their truth to be addressed. Number five, to let teachers who are denying, gaslighting, or spiritually bypassing know that what they are doing is willfully ignorant and re-traumatizing victims. Number six, to illuminate the inherent racism, homophobia, cultural misappropriation, and exploitation that perpetuates the teachings, 3HO lifestyle, and overall community ethos. Number seven, to stop the perpetuation of gaslighting and victim shaming by naming it for what it is. Number eight, to dismantle internalized shame, guilt, toxic positivity, and lightwashing mentality. Number nine, to honor all of the parts of ourselves that have been forgotten or silenced. Number 10, to honor each body that has come through our community, both named and unnamed. Number 11, to encourage people to do their own research, process their own emotions, get somatic therapy and other therapy and support as needed, to draw your own conclusions, and to be critical thinkers rather than to just blindly follow anyone. Please remember that your story matters. Please share it when you're ready. We're here to listen and to support you. I want to welcome today's guest, Guru Nam Atwal. She was born and raised in 3HO in Eugene, Oregon in 1989. Her parents are Siddharjit Singh Atwal, a Punjabi Sikh who was raised on a farm in the Punjab, and her mother Simrit Khalsa, who joined 3HO in her early 20s, taking Kundalini Yoga classes in Seattle. Guru Nam and her brother Hargobind Atwal both attended Midi Pidi Academy for several years. During summer breaks, she worked at the 3HO-owned Golden Temple Enterprises as a temp worker. After graduating MPA, she attended the University of Oregon in International Studies with a focus on peace and conflict resolution. She did modeling for Kundalini Research Institute at the time as well, so you may recognize her from some Kundalini Yoga manuals. In 2018, she became a flight attendant for Alaska Airlines and currently lives in Alaska. I want to welcome Guru Nam here on our podcast, Uncomfortable Conversations today. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And thank you for having this platform. It's been really great. It's been really great for me in my own healing to be able to listen to some of the other conversations.
Yeah, hearing other people's stories, how it helps reflect on your own support, on your own story.
Yeah, absolutely. Like hearing other people talk and recognizing that I can relate. And also just I think it's very healing for truth to be spoken, because there's so much like just detriment that comes from not speaking truth. Um,
Yeah. Truth. That's a truth. It it how the body holds untruth, and on top of that within a community that's saying it stands for truth.
yeah, yeah. So that is really ironic and hypocritical, and I'm still processing a lot of anger around that, around like growing up in a community that was perpetuating that kind of dynamic.
Mm.
And as a kid, it was very confusing to have adults say, "Oh, we stand for all these things," and then I mean, as a kid, you're very in just naturally intuitive as a child. You can just tell what's true and not true, and you're having an adult tell you, oh, what you're feeling is not true. Actually, this other thing is true. And so you're learning how to deny your own truth as a child. So that's something I know I recognize that I learned at
Mm.
an early age. I recognized how to deny my own sensations, my own emotions that were true to me, but to deny them. I learned to deny them and disassociate
Yes.
from them.
I so relate.
So that's something I'm healing and working on.
Mm. It's super relevant because there's so many levels and layers of it, but the one you're bringing up specifically is I'm feeling like this, and the adults in your atmosphere are saying no, no, that's not what you're feeling, and giving you a different way that you're supposed to relate to something, which then automatically changes how you relate to yourself, or you just escape your body and say, okay, then what I think I'm feeling isn't what I'm feeling, let me go ahead and check out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Or recognizing or calling something out like, "Oh, why do we do this?" And then da da da. Like, why do we say that we, believe that in Seva, but we're not like doing any outreach in the community. We're not like helping others. We're just staying within our own little bubble. And I don't ever see,
Mm, mm, interesting.
like us interacting with other people and um
Let's pause
yeah.
because you're bringing up some points, but I also want to
Mhm.
context it for listeners to understand
Yeah.
how you have these lenses on things. Um, let's start with why is it important for you right now to share your story? What's do you hear?
Yes. Well, I think telling our stories is important. I think speaking the truth is very important. Um, I believe that it will also be healing for me to be able to speak out because I have felt unheard and like I had to hide my authenticity.
Mhm.
It felt unsafe, actually. Like I felt like I was going to be like rejected from the community, which felt like a survival
Mm,
level.
mm.
Like, but it's feeling safe enough to speak. Um,
Have you found
yeah, it's feeling.
before now that it's felt safe enough to speak out, or have you saying before now, before this year of the kind of like break open of our community, is this kind of the first time that you're feeling safe to speak out, or have you done it in kind of different stages in different ways?
um, yeah, just it's nice to have a platform, um, and I feel like safe in this space with you that I'm not going to be judged because I think that
Mm, thank you.
Yeah, it's been really hard also. I in my own like internal process, it's been hard for me even to validate myself, my own feelings, like because of all of the conditioning that I had and the programming. So like I'm finally, it's just kind of a perfect combination of like me finally being in a space where I love myself enough and I'm validating myself enough
Mm.
um to be able to like feel comfortable to talk openly um and feel authentic in that, and not because I could also kind of feel like, oh, I'm not really being authentic, but I like don't know how to. Um,
Oh,
and
wow.
then that plus like having the platform and having the safe space to do so. And I mean, if this is a nice space because like you obviously understand intimately um this community, and whereas like speaking with someone who doesn't have any context or like understanding it can be hard because I can feel like shame for my feelings,
Yes.
like explaining, oh yeah, it was really hard for me to start wearing makeup or to like cut my hair, like that feels stupid to say to somebody who's just like didn't grow up in this community.
I don't
So
understand the
does that
brevity.
make sense?
Yeah, the brevity of those choices and like what
Yeah.
it means in the sense of our identity, all of the feelings associated. Like, I mean, how old, just to go there right now, when did you cut your hair? When did you start exploring yourself in these capacities, just to give the listener context of your process
Yeah.
in the years?
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, so I would say I grew up like very, you could say orthodox, like Sikh, but I mean, American Sikh, um,
So your
up
dad,
until
Bobby,
basically,
he was a part of 3HO,
yeah.
right? So you're both your dad and your mom were very much in the 3HO community, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, my dad's very much Punjabi, but he would come to Gurdwara and be involved in all that. And um, they more, and my mom like got attracted to 3HO more for the Sikhism side, she said.
Okay.
Um,
That was wrong. I wrote that wrong in your bio that it wasn't for.
I sent it wrong too. So,
Okay. So,
um,
well, okay, I need you to pause and we need to give the listeners more context. So, when you're
mhm.
born, your parents are already married. He's Punjabi and he goes to Gurdwara, but he's going to the 3HO Gurdwara is like people don't necessarily understand that they're not in our community. So just give us a context
Yeah.
what you're born into.
Yeah. So Eugene, Oregon, there's like this little 3HO community, American Sikhs. Um, so my mom is a white Sikh, and then my father is Punjabi from India. My uncle on my dad's side was like friends with Yogi Bhajan back in India.
Okay.
And so that's how Yogi Bhajan met my dad. Um, and then my mom had expressed to Yogi Bhajan that she wanted to get married. And he didn't like go and just arrange her quickly, which he did with a lot of people. It took a little while. And but yeah, he arranged her with my dad, who was still in India at the time. Like she didn't know anything about him. They didn't even tell her like if he spoke English or like what his education was or whatever, but she was very open because she came from a pretty difficult childhood. So she's really open to, this is my impression, that she's like really open to, having a change, a positive change in her life. And um, yeah, so they started writing letters, and eventually that's like a whole story in itself, the way that they got together. But yeah, so mm, I don't know, it's like so much, I'm not really sure how to like what to include, but yeah, I was raised in this just Americanized version of Sikhism. Um and but still my father's Punjabi, so I had that kind of had like a foot in two different worlds. Because like in the summers, multiple times during the year, I'd go up to Vancouver, Canada, where all my Punjabi cousins are and uncles and aunts. I still have one aunt who lives in India, but yeah, I'd hang out with them, and that's like a totally different culture. The Punjabi Sikh culture is different. Like there's different ways that they practice Sikhism. There's yeah, and kind of just like a different like yeah, so just some different things that feel different. So
Being in both those worlds, did you automatically know cultural appropriation was happening, or was it more rationalized in ways that made 3HO better? Like what was the experience growing up, and what's your impression of it now? Like, give us a lens of that.
yeah, it was confusing. I mean, I definitely didn't say as a kid like, oh, this is cultural appropriation, you know. It was just kind of, it was normalized. Like there was just a lot of things that were not cool that were normalized, and now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, that's weird, kind of, for people to be doing these things and not fully understand what they are.
What I
But
wanted to pause and say on that is, I had just zero real connection to Sikhi or Sikhism from a very young age, but I remember distinctly thinking and feeling like there's such a when the pride we were getting instilled with for like this, that we're doing it better. Like I remember distinctly hearing that in terms of why we had Khalsa and Indians didn't have Khalsa. And like the indoctrination I remember around that was something around the caste system, and that's this whole thing of like, oh, that's what Indians do, but that's the knowledge we're getting was pre the caste system, and like just all this stuff. And I was remember when I was dissecting some of this out of my own consciousness, like, where did this stuff come from? This is totally just made up garbage. And I never fully got the full context until 2020 in terms of how absolutely violating it is to Sikhi and to Punjabi culture or to Indian culture. I just never really understood.
yeah, I mean, you just hit the nail on the head, honestly.
That's only one
I
thing.
think,
So many other things. That was just the Khalsa part. There were so many other things of why I felt like we had gotten taught to be superior to Indian Sikhs. We're vegetarian, all these other things.
yeah, yeah. So I guess I'm just like, it was confusing. It was really freaking confusing. Can I cuss on this thing?
You can do
Um,
it.
yeah, it was fucking confusing
Yes.
because I mean, like, just fast forward a little bit to when I was at MPA, like the kids were talking about the Indians, the Indians this, the Indians are dirty, like ew, blah, that kind of like energy about it. I just want to say also, I think because of just some of the like trauma that I've gone through, I don't always like remember things totally clearly. So I'm just talking more about like the feelings that I had and the energy that things had. That's how I'm able to like speak about things. Um,
And I want to just pause and say that's extremely valid, that our body memories are memories. And they're actually more
yeah.
important memories in a way than cognitive memories. So just want to
Okay.
validate you on
Yeah. So when I'm speaking, it's like this is like what my body and what my experience is, not like I necessarily maybe heard those exact words kind of as somebody's mouth, but that's like the vibe that it was. And so then in my head I'm confused because I'm like, well, I'm half Punjabi. Wait, I don't really get it, because
Mm.
like, aren't the Punjabi Sikhs the ones that like, didn't Sikhism come from India? Shouldn't you actually be like honoring and respecting more the Indian Sikhs? Like, aren't they the ones that have held this knowledge,
Yep.
and like they're the reason why you're even able to do this? So I'm really confused as to why you're like putting them down and thinking that you're better. Wait, but and so like I'm partially part of that, but also because that's how I'm growing up, but also like I'm Punjabi Sikh, so how
Yeah.
it was just
The
challenging.
infusion,
Like I don't know, I just kind of was like, ah!
the infusion of white
And I
superiority and spiritual superiority in the ethos of our upbringing, I felt was quite astounding.
yeah, I mean, so I recognize that for many many years I legitimately felt like I was better than other people. um like
How does
like in middle school, or no, I think it was high school. So I went to MPA for 8th grade, and then um my parents didn't want to send me back because it was kind of expensive, and they said they missed me, and so I stayed back for 9th grade, but I wore a turban, and I like, because I had gotten all into that stuff. It felt like, okay, this is like the epitome of what you do if you want to be accepted in this community, and like I want to be liked, and I want to be accepted, and I want to be loved. And it just felt like growing up, okay, this is like what you need to do in order to be loved.
that's the
Here it is. And here's the box. Like here's the box that you need to exist in if you want to be accepted and you want to be loved. Here it is. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like I want that. um yeah, I mean, and also like there's cool things about it too. So I was attracted also. I wanted to be like with my friends, and
guessing
um
why you wanted to be in India was that it was a part of the cultural experience. It made more sense to be apart with everybody, with people, versus like going to school and where
yeah,
you're so different than everybody else, that kind of thing.
there's just so much. It's hard to like fit it all in. But yeah, also being half Punjabi, I wanted to understand more and feel more connected to my Punjabi roots. Um, Learn more about meditation. I mean, I do think on a certain level there was a part of me that like well, I wanted more out of life. I wanted to. It felt like Harry Potter came out around the same time, and I literally felt like, okay, I'm going to Hogwarts. Like this is magic. Like meditation is magic, because there was all these meditations to like manifest this, or like for these very specific things, and that was real. Like that was what was real to me at the time. So okay, like I want to learn this like magical special knowledge, so I can continue to like be like the special person. I'm supposed to help help people.
The human
Like this is my mission.
of all humanity.
Yeah, I'm supposed to save the world. Like I literally felt the weight of the world on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
Yeah. Well,
but I want to tie back to like when I was at in 9th grade, I got like interviewed for the school paper. And I just remember that I said, oh well, I'm different than everybody else because I meditate every day, and I like think about how I can be um how I can help other people, and how I can like be a better person every day. So like that's how I'm like different, and how I'm like better.
mm,
And just looking back, that's so freaking oh,
yeah, let's pause.
like
This is this ties back to, yeah, this spiritual superiority, the white superiority, kind of this, it's all tied in there in this. We have this special knowledge that the world doesn't have, and it's your responsibility to carry that on. And as children born into a high demand group, we literally got that level of training, and it's so within the fibers of our existence that it was the only acceptable place to live, as you're talking about that little box.
yeah.
To, I
And
know
that's some
talking.
that brings up some.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So the idea that somehow the knowledge that we have is better. It's better. It's the best. It's better than everything else that's out there. So why would you even go and explore anything else? Like, oh my gosh, why would you ever want to go like explore this like dance or this other singing practice or this other kind of music or like this other art form? Why would you ever think, why would you ever want to do another kind of yoga or like another kind of meditation? That's just ridiculous because we have the best. So like even if you want to go, like, even if you're talking about it or if you're like thinking about it, there's something wrong with you because obviously you don't see what we have, what you have already. Like you have. So I felt very isolated
Mm.
and confined. And I also want to acknowledge like this is my own, I mean, not everybody had this experience, but this is like the programming that I got based on the unique combination of all the factors that went into creating my life.
Right, your lived experience.
Um,
That's all you can share is your experience. So
yeah.
keep going.
Yeah. So, like it was, it was this program in my head that didn't allow me space to explore. Like I felt trapped within myself. I felt within a prison. I remember vividly like having that experience. I mean, I was not, it was so fucking ironic because I was not awake to my own life. I was not living my own life. Um, I was not free.
But you mean
I
it's
was not
ironic that
like,
you think you have that you're better than everyone, but you're actually trapped in yourself. Is that what you're saying is ironic?
yes,
Yes.
yes, yes,
What is also
yes,
ironic is that this is called the yoga of awareness, and yet
yes,
everybody is unaware of what's happening in plain sight and in their own bodies, including myself,
yes,
because
yes,
it's the yoga of awareness, and yet I'm actually 100% disassociated from my body since I was a child.
yes, 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 yes.
That's a hard to swallow.
uh,
This is where we throw up for a little while, ladies and gentlemen.
so bad.
Oh, I love
I
the
can't do it anymore. Like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm so glad that it's just, it sucks that it took me this fucking long to like feel free within myself. I finally do. I really do. I'm so stoked and happy with where I am right now. And like, because I mean, when I came back from MPA, like I did start branching out and exploring and like doing other things.
What year was that when you came back from MPA?
2008, I graduated.
Okay, graduated, you start exploring, keep going.
Yeah, I started like, partying, drinking, but I would wear a turban to class
Okay.
in college and then I would take it off and I would go party and I would feel like so guilty when I went to Gurdwara, like, oh my God, they could tell, they could read my energy and they could tell that I was drinking last night. Oh my God. And like, oh my God, I had sex. Like, they can tell. Like, I'm a bad person.
Wow.
Yeah, it was horrible. Like in my head, I had so much paranoia. Like I thought people could read my auras and tell, which maybe they fucking can. But you know what? That's like also an invasion, an energetic invasion. Like there was just so many boundaries crossed.
Right.
So many boundaries crossed. Like it was.
We also grew
So
energetic invasion normalized. That
Yes.
that got very
Yeah.
normalized because of the growing up environment, and we got taught
Yeah.
that was okay, that we didn't have agency over our own bodies.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I wanted to just mention though, like, the shame.
Mm,
So, like I was exploring, because and I'm glad that I was giving myself space to explore other things and um but I had so much shame
mm.
about it. Like, here's the box that I was living in, la la la, like everything's great, but then I started like branching out, reaching out outside, like, oh, what's it gonna feel like if I try this, or if I try this and do this, but then I would feel shame about doing that, about the exploration.
Mm.
I wasn't able to be like a free, just normal, young adult person, oh, like, yeah, I'm in college and I'm like, and finding myself and exploring things. I felt so bad about exploring. I felt like I was like wrong and bad and I was doing a bad thing and I like felt like I was a horrible person.
Mm.
Like, I'm not living my mission. I'm like I'm down in the dumps. I'm just,
Mm.
I'm meant to be the future leader and teacher of the Aquarian age, and look what I'm doing. I'm at a party. Oh my god. This is
So
the
this is
worst thing ever.
this is your inner narrative.
I mean, I'm like kind of dramatizing it. Yes, but yes, it was I just felt like a lot of yeah, self shame and guilt. Like, the shaming and the guilt tripping had been internalized, and so I was not free within myself to like. And then also I think it got to the point where um I'm not really sure. I mean, I really wanted to break free,
Okay.
but like I didn't know how,
Sure.
and I felt like I didn't have any support. And I also felt like I couldn't talk to anybody about it, because if I talked to my parents or if I talked to anybody else, like any of my mentors, which they were all really in the like 3HO community, like uncles, aunts, they would try to counsel me
Mm-hmm.
about like, oh, okay, well, you just like,
So that
it
makes
was
sense.
all back to, the spiritual like bypassing and like religious language. It was, there was no like validation
Mm.
of my process and my desire. Like, maybe this isn't actually what I want. Like, maybe this isn't actually right for me.
Right. There was no space to even consider that, and you didn't have anybody to talk to be able to see that there might be options for yourself and your identity.
Yeah, I didn't feel like that. So I felt like very alone. I felt very isolated and very depressed.
Mm.
And a lot of shame,
Mm.
like ashamed. So all of this, I mean, was happening, and had really low self-esteem. Like, yeah, which was confusing because I also felt like, oh, well, I have everything going for me in life. Like, why do I feel so shitty?
And you're
Um,
wearing a turban still publicly, and you're still kind of like
mhm.
outwardly dressed, right?
Well, it got like smaller and smaller, slowly, slowly, during the 4 years, to finally I was like just wearing a head cover. That was a whole thing in itself. I had so much anxiety through
Around
that whole process.
only wearing a head cover, like slow.
So much anxiety.
Okay, keep tell us.
I mean, yeah, and this is one of the things where it feels stupid to say this to somebody who like doesn't understand the 3HO community, or to somebody who's like still indoctrinated into it, that okay, I recognize at a certain point I'm just doing this because I'm afraid of somebody seeing me and seeing that I'm like doing something different,
Yeah.
and they're going to judge me, and
Right.
then maybe like I'm going to not be accepted, and they're going to like, yeah, they're going to judge me.
Yep.
That felt like life or death or something. Uh this is so
In all fairness,
yeah, so I had so
In all fairness to everyone listening and to ourselves, it is like life or death in growing up when you've witnessed people you love be ostracized and be kicked out and be publicly shamed and humiliated in front of us. Over time, we learn that it is like death because belonging matters and we don't want to be ostracized from the people we love. So,
Yeah. I mean, so like I get it. So that's another thing is I get it. I'm able to, like understand how that happened and why I had these like emotional experiences. Um, I don't think it's okay, but I understand why it happened. Um, but it really sucks. Like, um, yeah, just for most of my life, I really felt like I was not loved for who I was. I was like, it's like you have to be this person in order to be accepted, in order to be loved. And so like I didn't know who I was. Like I remember vividly I wanted to be an actor. And somewhere in my preteens, I decided, oh well, I can't be an actor because I can never cut my hair. And like when you're an actor, they need to, cut your hair and like change your appearance to fit with the character. So I felt like this was like I think I was 12 or something. So I thought, oh, okay, well, because I grew up doing a lot of musical theater and like plays and stuff when I was young. And then it just felt like at a certain point, okay, well, I'm not getting as much support. It didn't feel like my parents were supporting me as much. Like, okay, now it's time to kind of go focus on like a real thing, um, real career. So yeah, um, yeah,
you
after
were
college,
you were talking about the transition, wearing the scarf towards the end of your college.
yeah, I didn't feel excited about pursuing a career in what I had got a degree in. My plan had been to go work as like a diplomat or work for the UN or something. Which I mean, I'm still interested in like peace studies and conflict resolution, and I am doing some of that work in a nonprofit. It's called Interfaith Prayer Service International. They hold monthly interfaith services. They've been doing it since um, a month after 9/11, actually, in person in Eugene, Oregon. So I was on the board for that as a secretary for like for a few years. That was in college, and I'm working with them again. Um, but sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Okay, so I want to kind of sum up what I've heard, so we kind of have a sense of like what there where the confusion in and then into the exploration stage. You grew up in a very 3HO community, which is Eugene, Oregon, because Temple Enterprises and other 3HO businesses were very much located there. And you had the Punjabi side, you also had the American side, but very much in 3HO. And there was like an enjoyment of it, like you enjoyed it, and yet it was also confusing within it because you could see the dichotomy. And you went to school in India, but you also had that 1 year where you went to local high school, and that's the time you were describing the real awareness of like, oh, I'm better because, and here you are amongst everybody. So this real recognition of like, I'm on a righteous path. My life is devoted to this, all the things. You go to school, finish at MPA. And from my understanding during those years at MPA, there's an emphasis on discipline and yoga and meditation. And like a lot of the students are coming out like really devoted to the path and Yogi Bhajan's teachings. I even had heard that there was Kundalini teacher training as a part of the graduation, which kind of is facilitated
Yeah,
into the yogic path of bringing these teachings to the world. And this is an
yeah,
important part to note because it's a part of what MPA is standing for in terms of bringing these teachings forward, but it's also what KRI is doing and how it's all intermelded. and how Secret Farm is all, everything's so melded. And what I hear you saying is that you started branching out. Here you're going to University of Oregon, you're started stretching, but you start having the awareness of how mixed up inside, like, who am I without this? And the only reason I'm doing these outward things is because I don't want to lose out on the people I love around me.
Like, I want to be loved. I want to be accepted. I want to feel like I belong.
Yeah.
And this is also all I've ever known.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, yeah, and this is the best way. Like, why would I ever do anything else? So I felt so much shame for exploring anything else.
Yeah.
Like,
And
anything that just wasn't like basically endorsed by 3HO. It was like, why would you ever do that? Like, why would you ever, take like you know, yeah. So I didn't feel like free to really truly explore. And I don't know, I feel kind of stupid saying that too, because I know like not everybody had that. There's some people that were in 3HO that like were able to do that and didn't feel so confined internally, but like I really had a very strong experience of feeling like confined and trapped within myself.
I want to pause and just say, what we're learning about high demand groups and growing up in a cult and the level of abuse that we're now seeing within our organization as true, that has existed for so long. We cannot not have a feeling of identity with trappedness attached to it because of the amount of shame that we grew up with. Everyone, whether we're recognizing it as shame is another story, but it's a result of us growing up in this community. What I don't know, what I want to know real quick, just to give us context, is so you started exploring during this time of the college years, and then, but many years later, and then it was 2020 when all this came out. It sounds like you were already having identity exploration
Yeah.
while
Oh yeah.
all this happened.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I like, I was living with my parents for the first year of college. That was not a good experience because like my they could tell that like I was exploring, and it was hard for them because they're like, well, we spent so much money sending you to India, like you're supposed to be living this lifestyle, and what are you doing? It kind of felt like like, what are you doing? You're like straying from your mission, your path, your destiny. Like you're like you're ruining your life. You've gone to the dark side. Yeah.
I want to point out how I just really love how you get loud and expressive, because it's like a part of breaking out of indoctrination. Like, that's what I feel with you. Like,
oh, like this is,
yeah,
this is me. Like, I'm a pretty like wacky, like expressive person. I'm just like a theatrical kind of like energetic person naturally. And so, yeah, I mean, that was also hard. I got, made fun of a lot just for being kind of like spacey or like goofy. So that was also hard. That was like a thing that happened at MPA.
Like in neutral tone. Is that what you mean? Not being in neutral tone. Is that what you mean?
I mean, just being kind of like goofy and silly. And
so you got bullied? Is this what you mean? Like, you get bullied for that expression of your personality?
I think so. But again, like it's hard to like remember specifics. It's just kind of a feeling.
Yeah. And what I'm also hearing is like when it's normal, like when gaslighting is normal, we actually don't know how to know that it's not. you know?
That makes sense.
So it's happening all around us. And so therefore we start to actually, I think when gaslighting happens so much, we start to doubt and invalidate ourselves. The voice of the tyrant becomes our own inner voice.
Oh, that was completely my experience. So that's why, I mean, I really love and honor myself so much now. Thank God. Like, I'm alive because I love myself. Like, but there was many years where I wasn't. I didn't love myself because I had that like internalized programming of this is how you need to be. But then there was like a stronger part of me, my true authentic self, that was trying to break free from that like confinement because I could never really truly be myself to stay in that.
Yeah.
And so my true self was trying to break free, but then there was the programming, the like that was just all intertwined in my being, like in my spirit, in like all layers of me.
Yeah.
That was like, no, you can't break free. This is who you are. Like if you break free, then or if you try to explore or like do something else, then there's there you're wrong, you're bad, like something's wrong with you, you're not living your destiny. Like just all of these, I have just so much.
Mm.
It's like the voice of a combination of my parents, the community, Yogi Bhajan, like my peers, just in my head.
Yeah.
And I still battle with it today at times, but basically just most of my 20s was like an internal battle, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and shame on top of that because, oh, well, I grew up, I'm a yogi. Like, I'm not supposed to be depressed. I'm not supposed to be anxious. There's a fucking meditation for that. I'm obviously not doing my sadhana because I'm depressed and I'm anxious. So, like, I just felt like I can't win. Like like I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't.
Mm.
Um
Mm.
yeah, so like I um I feel like it's like relevant to mention that I did end up in a like really unhealthy relationship after college. Um and I feel like I was kind of primed to end up in that because of all this like conditioning. And so the space that I was in, I was like smack in the middle of my process, but I was kind of unconscious about it. I didn't really know that like this is what I was doing. I'm able to speak about it now because I'm finally in a place where I love myself enough.
Mm.
And I've been able to like release and let go enough of the shame to be able to talk about it and not feel like still, you know, I'm doing something wrong and bad by like being myself. Oh my God.
Right. Feeling an
Yeah.
emotion.
And I have enough.
God. Feeling your anger. Oh my God.
Yes. 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 Calling out the hypocrisy. Like I finally have enough people in my life who love me for who I am. And that's been really big too. Like, um, yeah. So, uh, just I was like super yeah, just super insecure and trying to find myself but like not knowing that even that was okay and just yeah, so I ended up in this like just really toxic relationship for 2 years and that was my like big kind of wake up because it just got I it's just really ironic actually. It's I mean I am able to see how it served me, but it like really uh a lot of the internal language that it brought it out to the outside because he would like say things to me that I had been thinking about myself.
Mm.
um and I felt trapped in the relationship. Like I felt very controlled and very trapped,
Mm.
but also there was like a familiarity with that.
Isn't that
um
interesting? That you're feeling familiar, like, wow, this is like from my upbringing, or this is so familiar from somewhere.
But I mean, I didn't realize that at the time.
Mhm.
But like there were things that happened in the relationship that were not okay, but I like stayed in the relationship
Mm.
because somehow I like convinced myself that it was like okay, and I wasn't being honest. Yeah, I got really isolated in that. um I mean, it was definitely like very unhealthy. uh and I don't know, I there was also a lot of shame that I felt about the fact that I was in it, because I'm like, oh, someone like me like shouldn't be in something like this. How could I allow myself to end up in this place? Like that was rock bottom for me. um but also in my rock bottom, I was still putting myself down. Like, you shouldn't be here. Like, you shouldn't be like down here because you grew up like with all of this technology, with all of this, like all these blessings. Like, you come from this lineage, like you shouldn't be here. And I kind of also got that, like, unfortunately, I got that energy from my family. So like I didn't feel supported. Like I just felt so alone.
Mm.
It was just um yeah, and everybody could see from the outside he's not good for you. You should leave him. But uh I had such low self-esteem that I like yeah, I was convinced at the time that uh like I I wouldn't be able to find something else because I just, yeah, I had so much shame.
Mm.
Like, oh, I've like tainted myself.
Mm.
Like I can't go back. I've already gone too far. No, they're not gonna.
Mm.
Like it was kind of, yeah, the guilt tripping, internal guilt tripping was like really, really bad. Like I was punishing myself. Um yeah, so I just felt like um in a very bad place. um
So what I hear you doing now is being able to reflect on your upbringing, having primed you for that relationship, kind of to be in such a low place within self. But at the time, you didn't necessarily make that connection. The lifestyle was still this place of like elevated truth, or were you breaking out of that already by this time?
I mean, I was definitely breaking out. It just felt like
I know you were breaking out in practices. All right. What I'm distinguishing is that I know you were exploring and kind of branching out in terms of whether it was drinking or cutting your hair or just living other lifestyle. But what I know is that the internal indoctrination doesn't go away even if we're doing external changes, and you're talking about that. So did you link your upbringing, was that only till later, or was that only this year, or has this just been slow awarenesses of you reclaiming your identity from the totality of what you were trained or programmed it to be?
Well, I would say that relationship really got me to start questioning my childhood. Like up until that point, I hadn't questioned anything because it didn't feel like I was allowed to. It felt like I had no permission to. Like, no, your childhood is perfect. You had such a blessed childhood. What are you talking about? The gaslighting, like
Yeah.
you had it better than anybody else. Like, of course. So that was also why I was so fucking worse, because okay, I'm in this abusive relationship. It's my fault. It's not like, yeah. So for some reason, I just started, thankfully, I was able to start looking at my upbringing
Yeah.
and start questioning things and be like, okay, there's obviously some kind of subconscious programming that allowed me to accept this kind of relationship into my life.
Mm.
Let's explore that. So that started my journey, and it was really hard. Like, I didn't want to face that. I didn't want to have to look at the fact that maybe NPA wasn't all perfect. Maybe growing up in 3HO wasn't all perfect.
Mm.
I didn't want to have to look at that. But this relationship was it was so bad that, I mean, there was also some good things too. Like, everything's always, there's good and bad in like everything. I don't want to speak in ultimatums, but
Welcome to the universe. It's a law of
yeah,
polarity.
that's life. And I also want to do a little like just comment about that. It felt like duality was bad. So if you're living in duality at all, like, that's just bad. But that's fucking life,
Our whole damn
actually. So yeah, let's not shame people for like, having mixed emotions about things.
Let's not shame
Actually,
people for having any emotions at all, actually.
yes, yeah. So yeah, that was really hard to start to question things and recognize that, oh, like, I'm not perfect, I'm not superior than everybody. Like, it was just the rug was being pulled out from under me.
Mm.
My whole life, my whole identity, my whole like perspective, was being challenged. So it was actually like, thanks to this relationship for being so shitty to make me start questioning things. Yeah, I mean, and then also, like, he did support me in my exploration too, because
Yeah.
so I want to, also acknowledge that.
It's important. It's very important.
Wow.
Mhm.
What years were this?
Because I had a previous relationship. Maybe that was like 2014,
Okay.
15.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so I mean, I had a previous relationship with like a Sikh person, but this was my first relationship with a non-Sikh person. And so like, he was actually able to reflect back to me some stuff like, hey, that's actually doesn't make sense. Like, that's kind of fucked up that you think that. And I would criticize him. I was like, how dare you? You don't know what you're talking about. You just normal person. You muggle. Like,
That's terrible. You muggle. Oh my
yeah, and I mean,
3HO
honestly,
superiority model.
yeah, I judged him a lot.
Mm.
So and now I feel like so much compassion. I mean, he was like being more authentic than I was,
Truth.
and I couldn't really handle it. So I was like, I was super judgmental.
Well, we learned how to be very judgmental. That was like serum. That was like mantra serum.
I don't, it's so fucked up. It's just like so hypocritical. Yeah. So really, I mean, now I I mean, I still feel a connection to Sikhism. I have that in my blood, and um I still feel like we're more than just physical forms. Like we are ethereal beings, you know, we are stardust, we are um energetic beings, and we do affect each other. We're all interconnected. Like I really truly believe in Ik Onkar, that like we're all part of this like energetic energy.
Yeah.
It's in everything and in everyone. And like that's like the nucleus, you know, of all the teachings, really. Not Yogi Bhajan's teachings. I mean, like that's really a core, or like what life is, really. And so I feel connected with that. I finally feel like open and able to like be open to other information and modalities, and like even people. Like I was not open to connecting with people who were not part of 3HO, because I had these like these walls up, some in my psyche and in my heart. Like I wasn't, and I still am able to recognize it, but a lot of them have broken down. And especially with my job, I'm like meeting so many different people. I'm spending, you know, up to 4 days with like these 3 people, traveling all over the US, and you know, hours with them. So I'm like recognizing it's so doesn't matter. Like if you're religious, if you do yoga, if you meditate, none of that actually is like correlated with being a good person. Actually, you can be a good person, you can be kind, and actually a lot of the kindest people and the people that have, you know, good morals, many of them have no religious affiliation and don't practice yoga or meditate.
And eat steak when they want to, and even drink beer.
Yeah.
Or
And drink.
cigarettes,
Yeah.
swear, or
Yeah. Yeah. Listen to, you know, rock music. Oh my God.
oh my God, I feel your liberation through your skin.
Yeah, I'm so happy. I'm so happy now. And it's just insane because like, I mean, I know what it feels like to not be myself, to feel trapped within myself, and to not love myself, like to the point where I'll accept somebody into my life who disrespects me on a daily basis and like oversteps my boundaries on a daily basis because I'm in such a low place. And I don't want to, you know, use the label as like a victim, because that just doesn't resonate. Like I'm able to take ownership and recognize that, okay, these things happened in my life to like condition me and make me kind of primed to like be in a state where that's the type of love that I accepted. Like, and it sucks, but yeah, I don't know, I'm happy where I am now, and somehow that was part of my process. So
Well, it sounds like that relationship woke you up to really starting to question your own ideology and your own upbringing, which allowed you to see yourself from a different lens, which started giving you different places of inquiry, like into self-esteem, or why you think, or
yeah.
all the ways that you're operating. My question is, in those years from 2014, 15, 16, 17, you're exploring, it was all the way in 2020 I want to know, what did it feel like to have been questioning all these things inside yourself and then suddenly here it's public in the community, this level of abuse?
Oh, I'm just like well, it purely pisses me off. It really pisses me off because I feel like I've been feeling that something was wrong for a long time. And it was just annoying that nobody was talking about it. Like, yeah, it pisses me off. It pisses me off because I went through a lot of pain. Like, I went through a lot of suffering. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe if people had been talking about this, I'd been like able to be authentic, like, pull the curtain back. Like, maybe I would have been able to be accepted for who I was sooner. And I hate that, like, that's what has been my reality. Like, I don't want to, like, want that, or need that. Like, that was also a narrative that went in my head of like, oh, why can't you just, be yourself and like be confident without needing other people to like accept you? But I recognize that that's like part of what the conditioning was, is you need to be like accepted by the group. Just, I really like got that when I was young. Yeah, so I just have a lot of like anger that's been coming up. And also, I mean, yeah. And I know that there's other emotions there too. But that's like where I'm at.
It's an important one.
It's relief too.
Yeah.
It's relief also because I'm like, oh, okay, finally, like a part of me can like breathe now. Like, oh, okay, I don't have to feel bad about the fact that like,
So yeah.
the fact that things didn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no, they weren't right, actually. Like, actually, it's just a further validation that my like feelings and my experience is valid.
Yes.
Because for most of my life, like, things didn't feel right.
Yes.
And I was questioning things, but that true part of me, like, my conditioning was like putting that part down. And so it was just like a lot of self-shaming. So it's just further validation that, hey, no, actually, like, your true self is super valid. And this whole time, like, you've really been onto something. So you can just keep being yourself, honey. Like, you just keep doing your thing. Okay? Because like, you've known this whole time that something was not right. And you were onto something. So you just keep living your truth and being yourself. And
Yes.
yeah, so I'm like so grateful to finally be in this place. And it just sucks that it took me fucking 31 years to get here. But
beautiful.
that's,
Your voice is beautiful, and the anger that I feel boiling up is beautiful, like all of it, because it's so opposite of where we come from. So to feel you here, it's like I can feel the pulse of Guru Nam.
yeah, it feels good to just be able to like express. See, because this is life. This is life. Life is messy. It's just messy. There's no way around that. That's just how it is. And it's like there was this whole kind of community formed around, oh, well, this is how you avoid the mess. You just do all these things. Okay. And then, but no, there's no like perfect meditation or exercise, practice that you can do that's going to make life not messy. It's always going to be messy. Yes, there's like ways that you can, maybe clean up the mess faster or like process it faster. You still need to go down into the emotions. You still need to like acknowledge and be able and be willing to like accept the mess. It's just growing up. It was like, oh no, it's not messy. No. You just, that's not there. You just,
we have to be feel the mess. That's it. Feeling it in the body, because we learned, even if the mess is there, to disassociate and watch it, to not engage with it, not to feel what's going on. And so when you said down and in the body, that's really important.
Yeah. And it's interesting because in my head right now, I'm like even contradicting myself. And I know this is part of my programming where I'm saying, oh, well, Kundalini Yoga is all about like letting you, go into emotion. There's like the fist of anger and like these different exercises that are supposed to help you like process your emotions. So, I mean, yeah, maybe there is like positive intention behind that to, yes, be in the mess and express it. But there was just all this other stuff on top of that made it not okay to accept your mess. I recognize that's the human. Yeah. So that's actually, there were really annoying and confusing because there was a part in my healing process in my mid-20s where I wanted to be able to just say it was all bad. It was all bad and I'm just moving on. But no, that's not true. That's not actually what's true. There was like a lot of good. There's a lot of good in like the teaching. Like there's like a lot of good in the community, in there's a lot of good experiences that I had and a lot of things I'm grateful for. And so it's a matter of like just processing and like, and picking and choosing like what resonates and what doesn't. This is the mess. And like, I recognize that, I have to walk the walk. Okay. If I like, it's just,
Tangling, detangling.
Yeah. It's very nuanced. There's many layers. It's not black and white. And there was a lot of black and white language and thinking growing up. That's just not how life is.
It's also not how we absorbed the indoctrination in our bodies. The body took it in very tangled. And I want to point this out because a lot of what you're bringing up, you're talking about like wrestling with our own sense of identity. And when we're born into an environment like this, we don't have self before it. People that joined had self before and then after, and they can have a distinct difference. So if you're listening, there was an episode earlier by Jyoti Ma, and she covers this specifically about what it means to be born into a high demand group or a cult, and the distinction between, say, cults in everyday life, which exist everywhere in our world, and what it means to grow up in an abusive, predatory cult. And listening to the whole episode really helps. And then she gets very specific to 3HO at the end of that episode. So listeners, I just can't encourage it enough, because a lot of what Guru Nam is bringing up is what it really means to begin to stretch ourselves out of indoctrination that to the world really aren't really big deals. But in our world, they're excruciatingly painful to explore. And maybe not everybody's experience is like that. Maybe you had a relationship that helped you kind of explore your identity or different ways. But in general, finding identity outside of being born in a high demand group can be very, very hard, and we all need support. And what I've learned since all of this came public is the complex PTSD aspect because of the amount of abuse that was taking place around us. And what you brought up at the beginning of this episode, Gurunam, was what it means when your reality is being denied regularly. And we grew up in an environment where we were being told to deny our reality. And not just that, but the adults in our environment were being taught to deny their reality. So if the adults are denying reality, then the children are learning from adults who are denying their reality. It's a compounding effect on our sense of self-trust, on our sense of self-worth, on our sense of self-concept, on identity, and then add to it the teachings of Kundalini Yoga elevate themselves as being the know-all of identity. So the complexity of that level of psychosomatic mindfuck is literally living in the nervous systems of those of us that were raised in this community, no matter whether we recognize it or not. We feel it in our bodies.
Yeah.
Music.
Yeah. It's hard. It's confusing.
Very confusing.
It's not fun.
And it doesn't end, really.
Yeah.
Constant discovery of self, of trying things, right? Of breaking out of unconscious programming that holds us back from experiencing joy and anger and ranges of ourself, because we got contained into a small little operating place of what's allowed, neutral. And there's not neutral in the world. There's positive and negative, and it is all continuums. We need all of that to be alive and human. It's called humanity. We get to be human.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's just been so hard to be willing to like share anything that's not like of like light, you know?
Yes. I thought the light washing terminology that Akal Sahai came up with was so brilliant, because I was like, that's so our reality. Everything got light washed where you didn't even get to feel any emotions in your own system. And the way I registered that in my body is I completely left my body and didn't know it.
Yeah, I think I can relate to that. Yeah. Whew.
You had mentioned through many years of feeling depressed and like really heavy emotions. And do you want to share a little bit about that time and kind of like what it felt like to be in the community when you were experiencing emotions?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've like kind of mentioned it, but it was just really a lot of like self shaming. Like, I shouldn't be feeling like this. And then feeling guilty for like not doing my sadhana, like not meditating. But I also, I don't know, because it's just ironic. Like, the way that we were raised was meant to teach us discipline, and NPA was meant to teach us discipline and teach us like to do these practices that would help us. But I felt resistant to doing it. And then I would, just feel bad. So like, I mean, even now it's just really hard for me sometimes, because I was like, not like I was forced, but like kind of I was forced. Like, this is what you're supposed to do.
Hold on.
I
Pause. If I hear what you're saying correctly, you're saying you're taught to you should do this, the discipline aspect, and yet then a part of you doesn't want to do it, and the challenge of those two. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like, okay, if you're depressed, just do this meditation, do Smiling Buddha Kriya. But then it's like, I don't want to do Smiling Buddha Kriya. And then, oh no, that's just your like negative mind or whatever coming up, you know, you need to like overcome that. And then feeling bad for like not being able to, just this fucking like shame spiral.
Meaning, instead of being offered support, like let's get you a therapist or let's really address mental health issues for what they are, you're just being told do a meditation and then having the internalized and external shame of not doing the meditation, and therefore that's why you're feeling that way.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
horrible.
Like it's horrible. Yeah. I again felt like very alone and isolated. And I also feel for like whoever like first gen are listening to this, because I know that ultimately, you know, there is love. Like I know like my uncles and aunties and my parents like do love me, but it's just I didn't get a clear experience of unconditional love, and it felt really conditional. So like I'm glad that finally we're talking about all this stuff, you know, so hopefully we can like get back to what's really true, which is like just loving each other and supporting each other for who we are. Because like I think my depression has been so bad at certain times that like I'm like glad I'm alive right now, because like there were times where it was just so bad that I like didn't see light at the end of the tunnel. There was like a moment where like I didn't know that it was going to get better. And I had a clear experience that, well, I don't want to like live like this anymore. And yeah, so it's like really toxic and really harmful and really dangerous to like not accept people's truth, you know? Like I know that because I've experienced that, and like I'm really yeah, and I recognize that it was their programming too that they got. Like they were actually just doing the best they could.
Yeah.
Ew.
Doesn't make it better, but it is true.
Yeah, it doesn't, but I'm really hoping, like I don't want, you know, everything to just like um you know, I don't want everything to just go away, because I really love a lot of people in this community, and I really love like the focus on community, and that was a really beautiful thing to grow up having like uncles and aunties around. And I lived on this street where most of the houses were 3HO families, and so I would like go outside and have kids to play with, um and like have dinner at like other people's houses, and I had felt this extended community, you know, that also helped raise me. And like we would get together for people's birthdays and different holidays, and that was really cozy and really nice. And like that's something that I want in my life, but I also want it um in a more authentic way. And so like now that people are talking about things, maybe we can be able to relate to each other more authentically, and you know, actually love each other for who we are. Like it's just going to be better. It's just going to be better after this, but there is like healing that needs to happen, and there's acknowledgement that needs to happen.
And feeling,
You know,
people have
yeah, like there needs to be validation and like healing, and because especially, I mean, just uh, yeah, it's a process. So I do have compassion, and I acknowledge that the first gen people who like were perpetuating this and helping to create this, they had their own trauma and their own level of indoctrination, and so I did go through, you know, periods of like blaming and just feeling really angry at people, and I don't, I mean, for my own healing, like that's not helpful. And so I recognize, having compassion for other people's journey and like where they're at, um, is helpful for me to like just feel healthier and feel, feel like I can be where I want to be in my life,
Mm-hmm.
in my emotional and mental space.
Mm-hmm. I want to point out that within 3HO, the indoctrination we got was to bypass the feeling and go right for forgiveness and go right for compassion. So, for anyone listening, if you're feeling anger and you're feeling blame and you're feeling all the righteous emotions at whatever stage you're feeling them, fuck yeah. And keep feeling them, because it's okay. You don't have to get to the point where you feel okay. Although someone else on their journey might be at a different stage,
Yeah.
that might be an okay stage for them. We have to respect each other to feel all the range of this. As convoluted as it is,
Yeah.
we can feel both attached and loving to our experience and fucking angry as all hell at the same time. And we have that right. And I want to also point out,
Yeah.
it also
Yeah.
doubly what makes it confusing, because a part of our lifestyle was really amazing. The international aspect, the extended community, there's all sorts of levels of what makes it so cool. And within that was so much predatory abuse that it's what makes detangling abuse and gaslighting so challenging for those of us that have been abused, because we love our predators. When someone you love is also the very person that has abused you, it's a very hard thing to detangle love from the predation. And we're all in that level of untanglement.
Yeah. I want to just mention also too, it just makes me think about like this whole Harbhajan Singh. I'm not going to call him Yogi Bhajan because that was like one of his titles. His name was Harbhajan.
Yep.
he I never really got it. I never understood why he was idolized. Even as a little kid, I remember like we were at Khalsa Youth Camp, which was this summer camp that would happen after summer solstice for all the kids. And I went there every summer. And I want to also acknowledge my mom. She like was encouraged to send me to MPA early. She didn't do it. And she would come and work at Khalsa Youth Camp to be there, to be able to like see what was happening and like be around me. So she would like run the kitchen, and she ran like the art studio, and she's an artist. But yeah, so I remember we would do like this presentation for Yogi Bhajan. It was at least the first few years that I was there. We would do like marching and Bhangra, and maybe we did some yoga thing, like meditation together. Yeah, and I didn't get it. Like with all the hullabaloo about him, I felt like, oh, I should feel more. I should feel like more like something special when I'm around. Something special when I'm around him, and I like didn't feel it. I didn't get it. And also there was one year where we all got in a line and we went and gave him a hug. And I was like, oh, I should feel like, warm and held. And I felt resistance. I felt him like holding back. It was just kind of like, you can tell. And I'm like a big hugger. Like when I hug somebody, I really like fully heart connect with them. And I could feel, and you can feel when somebody closes down their heart and they don't really want to connect with you when they're hugging you. And I felt that. And I was like 8 or something. I didn't get it.
Wow.
But I mean, also I was 8. So like I went along with stuff because that's what am I supposed to do as an 8-year-old person?
We learn to perform for the love. That's what we do.
Yeah, I just felt like a parrot or something. Like oh my God. And even like teaching yoga. So I mean, I graduated MPA as a yoga teacher. And it's like, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to teach yoga. So I started teaching at Yoga West in Eugene. And I felt like a fraud. Like I felt like, I mean, I didn't really realize it at the time, but yeah, I was just regurgitating what I'd learned. I was just like parroting
Hmm.
from the manual, but it didn't feel authentic to me. And I also had felt so sheltered from life. Like I didn't feel like I really like understood also what the teachings were saying anyway. So I was just like speaking about something that I had no personal experience,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Makes 100% sense.
Yeah. So that was also part of why I was like, well, I want to go like explore outside so I can be like a better teacher.
Well, to get more of a sense of who you are in the world. Here you are in the world,
Yeah.
not not in a fabricated world. You're in a world.
Yeah.
You want to feel who you are in that world, suddenly realizing you had no idea.
Yeah. It's just like the psychological like mind fuck
Yeah.
that I had. There's so many layers to it. Like I do not have it figured out. Um, yeah.
The layers are astounding. I
Yeah.
no idea. I went through decades of exploring external, like cut my hair, wear nail polish, wear colors. Wearing pink was hard work, you know.
Oh my God.
Nail polish was hard, you know, cutting my hair for the first time. Like I remember this shit was so hard. But when I went through all the external stuff and I thought I had really assimilated and really gained my identity, what I found so interesting was decades later, the amount of layers of psychosexual and body shame that I thought I had figured out, I hadn't even scratched the surface of the garbage that was living in. So I hear you fully.
Yeah. 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 Oh my God. That's a whole nother thing is like, yeah, when I started having sex, that was hard. Like I felt so guilty. And also got a lot of pressure to like get engaged. Um, yeah, that's just something I think relevant to mention. Like I was in a relationship and it was someone that also grew up in the community and we were both getting pressured from our parents to get engaged because they felt like it was like inappropriate or something. No, it's actually okay to have relationships.
Normal.
Um, yeah. And I mean, it just got to the point where it felt like, okay, a decision has to be made. Like either you like get engaged or you have to break up. And so, I mean, I knew that like I want more experience in my life. Like this is like my, you know, you're my like first partner ever. I don't want to get married. And I'm also, 21, 22.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that was annoying. Like that's annoying for me to look back at now and just see that like I just felt like what I was doing was somehow wrong and bad. Like, no, it was actually totally okay to be a young adult. I mean, I waited till I was 19
Mm.
to start having sex, which I think is like, that's totally normal. I mean, that's totally okay. Like, totally okay. But I felt so bad. So bad. I felt like a bad person. Like, for like exploring pleasure and in a healthy space, in a healthy, loving relationship.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
And that's a real part of being human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we deserve to feel pleasure. We deserve to enjoy.
Yes, we
That's
do.
also part of why we're here.
And it doesn't have to be a secret.
Yeah. That's another thing, is I was like lying to my parents and like about it for months, which I feel, yeah, I feel bad. I like wish that I could have been able to speak my truth and share with them more about my explorations and about, yeah, just like my relationships and drinking and stuff. But because of just my mindset, I didn't feel like I could. I didn't feel like it was safe to share with them. I felt like they wouldn't approve, and like they'd try to change it and wouldn't accept me in my process.
Sure.
So I lied a lot, and it led to more depression and more isolation, because like other things happened, like after that relationship, other things happened that were like I really could have used some support in,
Yeah.
but I didn't feel like it was safe to really speak my authentic truth. I felt like I had yeah, I just felt like, okay, if I actually share what really just happened, it's gonna be worse. I'm gonna be blamed somehow or shamed, like it
Yeah.
was my fault that this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, again, just a lot of like isolation, like me in my own, me in a very suffering, painful place, like depressed, alone, like not feeling like I could reach out for support.
Mm-hmm.
um and I just hope that somehow, maybe, yeah, and maybe that's not even like what would have been the reality. Maybe I could have reached out and shared about some things that were happening, but like it didn't feel like I could.
Mm-hmm.
Because just up until that point, I mean, when I had tried to like express my authenticity and be myself, express my authentic emotions about things, didn't feel like it was honored and like validated.
Well, in the teachings themselves, we were taught to not feel our emotions. And then as we're learning, there was a lot more around the hypocrisy around what we're seeing and what we grew up around. So, the invalidation and learning that it wasn't safe to feel, I think really makes sense in what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucked. I mean, I'm so glad to not be there anymore.
Yeah, and to be exploring yourself.
um
It sounds like you're asking yourself different questions and exploring yourself in different ways.
very much. Yeah. Yeah, I am noticing, again, with like loving myself, I'm able to be kind to myself, which I haven't been able to up until very recently. um
Okay.
yeah, and so that's another thing, is like relationships. So I mean, dating wasn't allowed, really, or that was the message that I got, is that you're not supposed to date. Which again, when I was a young adult, I'm like, well, how am I supposed to find like a person to be with? It sort of seemed like, okay, you hang out with them communally, and then like once you get engaged, then it's appropriate and okay to go spend time alone together. Or maybe you like go out, for dinner. Or, like it was just the messages that I got about relationships were confusing.
Sure.
And I'm glad that I'm like in a place now where I allow myself to have relationships, and they're such big teachers for me. um I mean, I've kind of like bumbled through and not really known how to show up in relationships. Like it sucked to feel like those were there weren't open conversations like about sex, about alcohol, about relationships. And so I didn't have any context. to know how to navigate those things when I was a young adult, like out in the big wide world. Yeah. And I really did suffer for it.
Yeah.
And so finally now I've gained enough self-love and self-respect and like communication skills to navigate those spaces. Yeah. And there's such teachers, like connecting with other people can be like such an amazing experience. And you like getting that reflection from somebody else can really assist in your own like healing and your own getting to know yourself more. And like there was a recent relationship I had at the end of last year, and this person like exhibited a lot of kindness towards themselves, and that really helped me do that more for myself. Like I recognize and I that this person having this, allowing myself, giving myself permission to like connect with someone and like have a relationship that may not lead to marriage, like probably not, and is just,
And that's okay.
yeah, really like helped. Yes, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
And that, and that you can have pleasure.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And that we can learn from pleasure. We don't have to only learn from pain and deprivation and sacrifice. We can learn from pleasure. We can put ourselves in pleasurable environments and learn and grow and learn about our own soul through pleasure and enjoyment, not just through sacrifice and deprivation and showing our endurance and showing and proving our strength. These are noble qualities, and yet they're not the totality of being human.
Oh, see, thank you. And I also want to like just extend that to anyone who did perpetuate these ideas, like the first gen. Like, you deserve to have pleasure. You deserve to be in a place where you feel like you're loved and accepted for who you are, like exactly who you are. You don't have to do anything that doesn't feel right to you, that doesn't feel authentic to you, just because that's what everybody else is doing, or just because that's what you were told, or just because that's like what's expected of you or what you've always done. It doesn't mean you have to keep doing it.
Yeah.
You get to fucking change. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to be yourself. You're allowed to like explore. You're allowed. It's okay.
Yes.
Even okay. And I know it's so scary because I had to go through that. It was so freaking scary to like venture out from everything that I had ever known.
Yeah.
It was literally the scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, it felt like I was dying, and a part of me was dying. This cast of who I was, you know, this like sculpture, like this perfectly chiseled, you know, cast of me, like the like wonderful like Guru Nam, who's here to save the world and be the future leader and teacher of the Aquarian age, and who's the face of MPA. Like literally put my face on the brochure one year. Yeah, I'll like do a little tangent. We had Parents' Day, which was like a presentation at MPA. Without asking me, they took a photo of me in like a turban with an Adi Shakti pin and everything. They blew up my face as a backdrop. It was my face, Yogi Bhajan's face.
Wow.
Yes, and then my face was on the brochure. I got made fun of that, like, oh, you're the face of MBA. Who do you think you are? Like, so perfect. But I had no anyway. So yeah, it's I lost my train of thought. But
Just talking about identity and living up to, you know, living up to these standards.
Yeah. This whole like chiseled perfect self. I mean, it's okay to like break it. It's okay to not be perfect. Like, and actually you're yeah, it literally is, it can be dangerous to perpetuate that, because especially if you're a parent and you're not living your authentic truth, that's what you're teaching your children. And that's actually dangerous, because as far as like mental health wise, that's dangerous to not allow a child to like have space to like be their authentic self,
Yeah, to discover who they are.
to feel shame,
Yeah.
to feel shame for who they are and their own authentic emotions and expressions and what they're interested in.
Yeah. We had a call the other day, and it was a several second gen on there, and one of them who's older than me. She's been in the community since the earliest days, and she's a psychotherapist. And one of the things she said was perfectionism keeps you from being accountable, and that we all got trained in perfectionism. And I just thought it was so powerful. I was like, wow, when we have this cast or shield up of our protectionism, it keeps us from being allowed to be accountable from those people in our lives, because we're never actually exposed in our vulnerable true selves. I was like,
Yeah, that's true. And the thing is also like, I understand that it's really scary. So, I mean, I don't,
I'm not scary for all of us, but just in general, even to let that settle in our own systems. Like, wow, what are all the ways that that we're unconsciously trained to be perfectionists? And then how much we project that onto other people, and what it meant to really grow up in an environment where, as children, we weren't allowed to just be children. We were being perfect yogis, perfect human Aquarian age, like that. This is cult 101 stuff. This isn't unique to our community, and yet it is unique to our community in the way we hold it.
yeah, that's really valid, because um it's like all I wanted was like just to be normal. I didn't want to have this weight of the world, this pressure of like saving other people. I didn't want to have that on my shoulders. I wanted to be able to just enjoy my life. And actually I'm realizing like that's, and I still do feel a desire to make a positive impact in the world. I do feel like that's part of like why I'm here. To help elevate like the energy of this planet. But I also recognize like it's not limited. I'm not limited anymore to like the way that I was taught growing up, like to do that. I feel very open to like other modalities and other practices, and just connecting to my own like truth that comes through.
Right.
But
Your truth in all of its expressions is so beautiful, and I just want to thank you for sharing us a glimpse into you today.
yeah, thank you. It's a process. So
Indeed it is. Do you have anything more on your heart that you feel like you want to make sure you share in our episode today?
um I mean, like, just gosh, thank you for having this space, and I really hope people keep talking and sharing, because like it's really okay for people to like speak their truth, and it's okay for people to be themselves, even if it feels like it's not. And I just um like I had such a hard time, and so I just really hope that anybody who is having a hard time recognizes like there are people out there in the world who are good, kind people who will love and accept you for who you are. And like, no matter what you have gone through, no matter what has happened to you, no matter what you have done, you still are deserving of being loved, and you're still like worthy.
So true.
Like, it's there, you're never too far gone. You're never like too damaged or tainted or whatever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that making choices, even though they're different choices than the way that we might have been taught growing up, doesn't make you wrong or bad. And the shame
Oh,
feels when doing that is because we all are holding a lot of shame that doesn't belong to us.
yeah. Yeah. And I'm also able to just recognize like this is kind of part of, this is like a small snapshot of also just what has happened to other people. Like, there's other people, you're not alone. Yes, like my experience is my experience, but I'm also not alone in like these feelings. There's other people that have these same emotions from other experiences, from other like limiting experiences. So I'm able to see that this is like, there are like, my own healing is and claiming of my authenticity is helpful, and I'm not alone in that process, and it's safe to express and be authentic.
Yes. And there's a lot of support here for you. If you need to reach out to a brother or sister, one of us, go ahead and reach out. But also know that there's support in all of these areas. So please get the therapy and the support that's needed. If you were born in the community, there is therapy that's being sponsored by 3HO. Not nearly enough. But if you're hearing this and you're a second gen or anybody that was born in the community in any capacity, make sure you're getting some support.
Yeah. Yeah, I just feel for like everybody who's like maybe just now questioning things, because I know how hard it was for me to kind of like over the years since I got back from MPA, over the last, 13 years, go through my gradual process of literally questioning everything I'd ever known. Like, that is the most terrifying thing you could ever do. Many people don't do that. Many people, they just stay in their ways because it's too scary.
Right.
It's too terrifying
Absolutely
to
true.
do anything different than what you've always done.
Absolutely.
Like, so I get it. It's really scary. But like, I don't know, just there, if you've seen like Shawshank Redemption, there was that one guy, he was in prison like for most of his life, and then he got out, he finally had freedom, but he couldn't handle it, and so he hung himself
Yeah.
because it was like too scary. So like, like, it's really scary, and so it's also okay if like you're not there. Like don't do anything that's like feels inauthentic. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
so because I know there's a lot of anger that's like going towards people who are, still kind of maybe perpetuating a lot of this stuff,
Or denying
and
that anything is happening at all, right?
yeah, and it's like maybe that's the best they can do right now.
Sure. I mean, if we can get to the place where people can hold them there, that's fairly fine. What we have to do, I think, is hold our survivors and hold each other that are choosing to look at this material, that are choosing to listen. We need to hold each other here. Let them handle that are choosing not to
Yeah.
look at all. Hold you that are looking, and we know that unraveling your whole sense of identity, what you were always doing for the last 40 years or what you've done your whole life, for those of you like us, it's hard shit. And we see
Yeah.
you, and we love you here, and there's support, and any stage you need to stop is okay. Don't feel ashamed.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow, wow, wow. I just can't agree with you more, Guru Nam. I mean, I've spent since, you know, my 20s unraveling layers of indoctrination and hypocrisy and doing stages of things. I can't even imagine the gravity or the brevity of all of it at once, and yet we know there's lots of people cracking open, and so we hold you compassionately. We invite you to share your story if that feels good for you. Sometimes it helps to get a lens, and we definitely invite you to listen to these stories of others and to share it with someone else that you know in our community or that practices Kundalini yoga, to hear these stories of real people from our communities with real experiences. And feel free also to check out this podcast on all podcasting platforms, on Apple and all the above. So just search Uncomfortable Conversations Podcast, the untold stories of the 3HO Kundalini Yoga community. You can also donate to this broadcast at gurunishan.com/uncomfortable conversations and support this work. Before ending our episode, I would love to hear about why you chose the song you've chosen.
Yeah, I mean, based on the prompt, like choosing something that kind of describes my story. I felt like some of the lyrics for this song were relevant. And then also I love electronic music. And so this is like a band that I listened to like back in college, but I still listen to them now. So that's why.
All right, well, let's hear it. Introduce the name of it for us.
It's Cruella. Oh, it's called Human.
Yeah. Human by Cruella. And here we go. And for copyright reasons, we don't play the whole song, but you can listen to the entire song at the Spotify playlist for Uncomfortable Conversations. So take a look at the link. It is in the bio of the podcast, and listen to the full song because they are all very worthy and related back to this experience. I want to thank you, Guru Nam, for being here and sharing yourself so authentically with us.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome.
It's so great. And I know there's so much more to discover. And as you discover yourself, we get to witness and learn. And thank you for letting us have a glimpse of you here and in your process, because it is a never-ending complex web.
Yeah.
Well, this has been another episode of the Uncomfortable Conversations podcast, the untold stories of the 3HO Kundalini Yoga community. Once again, if you'd like to contribute to this broadcast, you can make a one-time or monthly donation at gurunishan.com/uncomfortable conversations. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please send me an email at gn@gurunishan.com. You can subscribe and follow my work at my website as well. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Please share this broadcast with others that you know within our community and otherwise, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.